Okay, we're going to try to answer some of the questions and problems at the end of the chapter 6, starting with problem number 1 on page 137. What industries do you regard as being highly competitive? Examples would be small farmers, small hog producers, farmers at a local farmer market, etc. These are highly competitive. Nobody can corner the market and set their own prices. They have to accept whatever is the going rate is any particular time. And sell as much as they have available, and so they are competitive. Now, you'll be hard pressed to find many of these just because increasingly we don't buy products that are produced by highly competitive firms. They're produced by firms with strong market position. Now, can you identify any barriers to entry in those industries? They're really, for the small farmers, you need to have a small plot of land, and same thing for hog farmers, where they have to have some structure in a little area, etc. For farmers market, all they need is to pay fees, a small fee, to have a table space in the market, and so they don't have to have a college degree or advanced education or skills to enter in the market. And by the same token, if they decided not to return next week, or not to raise any more pigs, or grow any food, they can exit and nobody will come after them and expect warranties or continuation of supply, etc. So in and out of the industry is very easy, and only efficient ones at the end of the day will remain. That's the beauty of the market, competitive market environment. Question number 3. If there were more bookstores around your campus, would textbooks prices rise or fall? Well, that's a market supply. As more sellers enter into the market, the price for books will drop. So the next part is, why aren't there more bookstores? Well, this is the market. If there are too many entering the market and push the textbook prices down, each bookseller around the campus has to accept the price of this particular textbook, and let's say it's here, and yet some of them have a higher cost structure that makes them lose money. Average cost is above the market price, so there's no way they can survive. Maybe one of them can survive or two can survive, but the rest of them would not, because the excessive competition has to push the price way down. And of course, online booksellers and so forth have caused some of this issue that has forced some of the bookstores actually to shrink or close altogether, even around campuses as well. So that's the idea there. The market is limited. Books is not like if the price goes down, people go crazy over it and buy several copies of the same textbook, as opposed to, let's say, tomatoes. Some of us may buy larger quantity of tomatoes up to a certain point if the price was very attractive, but that doesn't go with the textbooks. You just need one, and that's the maximum you will buy. And as a result, the market cannot be expanded in terms of demand beyond the maximum number of students and so forth. Now, you can drop the price, and those students who normally would borrow books from a friend or share a book, they may say, at this lower price, I'll buy my own copy. But again, at the end of the day, you would not sell more than the number of students taking the class. That's the idea there. Now, question number 4, why doesn't Coke lose all its customers when it raises its price? Well, Coke has managed to create a brand name. When you create a brand name, you're no longer a price setter. You are a price taker. You are a price setter. That means that Coke can raise the price, and there are some diehards who would not accept a close substitute, which is Pepsi, and therefore they can retain some customers. Now, since Coke has a very close substitute, if they raise the price significantly, then even die-hard Coke lovers will switch. but up to a certain point. So therefore, they continue to have some market share, maybe not a huge market share, if they kept raising price as opposed to their next closest competitor. That's the whole idea of spending billions of dollars on advertising to convince people that your product is better, and if it's successful, you will retain some customer. So that's the answer to question 3. Question 4, I'm sorry, I think we answered that question. Question number 8. Well, no, let's go back to the question number 4. Why would a catfish farmer lose all her customers at a higher price? Catfish, once is cleaned and shipped to the store, you cannot tell the difference between one producer that perhaps feeds the catfish higher quality food as opposed to the other, so the product is identical in the eyes of the consumers. If they're identical, then no one can raise the price above the market, because she will lose all of her customers, because the demand curve is flat horizontal. You raise the price above the market, you lose all your customers. Nobody will pay. As long as the customers don't know where the catfish is coming from, and they don't know anything about who produced it and whether they produced under better quality arrangements, fed the catfish better, is fresher, etc., etc. So that's the reason that catfish farmers, and they're too small to advertise. That's why even for orange producers in California or Florida, they get together and advertise not particular brand, but all orange growers together, and it stimulates the market for all of them, as opposed to trying to advertise one brand over the other. So that's their strategy that they have followed in recent years. Okay. Question number 8. What rate of output is appropriate for a non-profit? For what we said before, for a profit maximizing firm, the produce the output where marginal revenue, which is the same thing as the marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost, which is at this point. Now, if you're a non-profit organization, such as some universities and hospitals, you don't have to earn this revenue area here, because we said that this is the profit level. You track it to the cost. That's average cost. That's the price you charge. The difference will determine as to whether you make a profit and how much. So here, if the average cost is $3 and the price is $4, the difference is 1, and then if you produce 50, your profit is 50. But if you're not a profit-seeking organization, such as some universities and hospitals, then you can continue to produce output, or take care of patients, or offer more classes and so forth, up to a point where price is equal to the cost per course or cost per class that is offered. So as a result, they can expand production and still survive, because at that level, all their costs, which includes the cost of professors, of facilities, pay for the president and staff, etc., is still built into the average cost. So at that point, they're not losing money. All the costs are accounted for, and they charge a price that covers all the costs, and they're not interested in profit margin. For-profit hospitals and for-profit universities, they don't provide certain patient care or don't offer certain courses if they're not profitable, and they only have a smaller number of classes or take care of a unique set of patients, where the profitability of the price and what they charge is worth their efforts and investment. So that's an answer to questions for discussions. Now let's look at the problems. Let's start with the problem number 1. Okay, and we have to use the table 6.5, I believe. And so here is a table 6.5, graph 6.5, and is asking you what will be the level of output at $9. So here is $9. If this was the demand curve, it would trace it to the marginal cost. The profit maximizing firm will produce 3 units. If the price is $13, you trace it. That's where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. That's 4 units. And if it's a 17, you trace it and is 5 units. So that's what you will produce. Of course, if the price was at $9, we have to have the average cost structure to decide whether they actually produce that level or not. And same thing goes with the 17. So that's where you get that information from. And so now the part A, we decided that at $9 the output is 3 units, at $13 is 4 units, and $17 output is 5. How much total revenue is collected at each price? So price times quantity is the total revenue. So here we have 9 times 3, 27, 13 times 4 is 52, and 17 times 5 is 85. That's the total revenue. How much profit does the farmer make at each of these prices? Well, profit is defined as total revenue minus total cost. Total revenue is defined as we said before, price times quantity sold. Total cost is average cost, meaning cost per unit, times how many units you produce. So in the first case, the total revenue was $27. How much is the average cost? Well, we have to go back to the table that we looked at earlier. And so the average cost here at 3 units, total cost is 31. At 4 units, the total cost is 44. And at 5 level of units of output, the total cost is 61. So therefore, we have we subtract from this 27.31, so the $4 loss if the firm is producing 3 units. And you could see it from the graph as well. I mean, here, if you produce 3 units, that's where you end up, and the price and then of course the average cost is higher than that. I'm sorry, total cost is higher than that. So at the 4 units you lose, at 3 units you lose money. At 4 units you make $8, and at 17 units, I'm sorry, at 3 units you lose money, at 4 units you make $8, at 5 units you make $24. That's the answer to problem 1. Okay. Now, problem number 4. Okay. It has given you some information in a table. Let's look at the table here. Here you have the output rises by 1 unit across. Then it's given you total cost structure for production. And so the first part is, if the prevailing market price is $16 per unit, how much would the firm produce? Well, we said earlier that for profit max output, a firm produces as long as marginal revenue is greater than or equal to marginal cost. Now, what's marginal revenue? Well, marginal revenue is the price for a competitive firm, and that happens to be $16. You can charge $16 and sell as many as your heart contents, and as people are willing to buy. Now we have to calculate the marginal cost to figure out where it would be the profit maximizing level of output. So let's go back to the table, and you jump the production by 1 unit, total cost changes, and you want to know by how much. Well, it went from 50 to 52, so marginal cost associated with producing 1 more unit is 2. Then you go from 11 to 12 and the cost jumps by $4, and then 12 to 13 the difference is $6, and then 13 to 14 the difference is 8, and then 10, 12, 14, 16, and $18, as these values are marginal cost, change in total cost when you produce one more unit. So therefore, with that information on hand, you go and look and say, all right, where is the price we know is $16. So somewhere here marginal cost is equal to price or marginal revenue. So you would say 106 perhaps, or is the value, or maybe somewhere in between 16 and 17 units if it's possible to produce half units. But let's say 17 units is around $16 marginal cost. So therefore the question is asking what is the level output at $16. Marginal cost happens at uh, at 17 units. Marginal cost will be $16 around, so therefore that happens at Q is equal to 17 units. That's 17 or 17 and a half units is the level of output. How much profit will it earn at that output? Well, profit again is total revenue minus total cost. Total revenue is we have price, which is 16, and the firm is producing around we decided was about 17, and the total cost at that point was 106. And let me see, I believe I thought I had calculated this thing somewhere, but I'm losing track of my papers. Let me quickly calculate this. Okay, as if we produce around 17 at $16, that's 272. And then if you subtract $106 from it, minus 106, and the profit is $166. Okay, and part B, I guess we answered the part B. All right, fair enough. Now let's go to problem number 6. And let's start with part A. Okay. All right, part A. Now in this case, we say that suppose that the monthly market demand schedule for Frisbee is given in this particular table here, and then you have marginal cost and average cost values are provided here, and I believe that this says that the price is now $6. First, draw the cost curves of the typical firm and identify its profit maximizing rate of output. So here I have set up the 100, 200, 300, 400, and 600, and then prices, and then I have tracked marginal costs, and then I have also created an average cost curve for this particular typical Frisbee producer, and identify its profit maximizing. Well, profit maximizing is where marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost when the market price is $6, which is also marginal revenue, is equal to, at this point, marginal cost intersects the $6, the demand curve or marginal revenue curve, and you trace it down, and the 500 units is the profit maximizing output level for a typical firm. Now, part B, draw the market demand curve and identify market equilibrium. Well, the market demand curve, you can just draw a downward sloping curve. Let me see if I missed anything. Part A, draw the cost curves and identify his profit maximum rate of output and his total profit. Well, let's go back. We decided that the profit maximizer is 500 and the price is $6, so total revenue is 3,000, 6 times 500. Total cost at 500 units. Well, average cost at 500 units, we trace it up, and at 500 units, the average cost is $4. All right, and then we produce 500, so therefore is $2,000 is the total cost. Profit is total revenue minus total cost, so it's $1,000. Okay. Part B, draw the demand and the supply curve, and equilibrium we know is $6. Now we go back and say, all right, at $6 on the table, what's the market demand at $6? To 4,000 units, so therefore the demand at the equilibrium quantity between buyers and sellers is 4,000 units for the market. Now, how many frisbees being sold in equilibrium? Well, 4,000. Part D, how many identical firms are initially producing frisbees? So we knew that each one, if they're profit maximizers, the typical one, they produce 500. Market as a whole is doing 4,000. So therefore, if I divide 4,000 by 500, we get 8 producers. Okay, so that gives you an idea of how many typical firms are out there to deliver the 4,000 units altogether. How much profit is the typical firm making? Well, the typical firm is making, there are 8 producers, they're each producing 500, and so therefore the profit the typical firm is making would be, their marginal cost is $6. Okay, average cost or average total cost is $4. So the difference between and then a price is $6. So between price and average total cost, the difference is $2, and each is selling 500. So therefore the total revenue is 6 times 500. Total cost is 4 times 500, and of course the difference we calculated before, this is 3,000 and this is 2,000, and the difference is a $1,000 profit per firm. And now the last part, okay, the last part, it says that because the profit exists or is present, this will attract new sellers. So therefore there's a demand in the market and a supply, and more sellers will enter in the market, and that will push the price down to the average cost. You remember when we talked about competitive firm, this was original equilibrium, and then you had average cost and marginal cost curve. And now as more sellers enter into the market, the equilibrium price is dropping, So this guy is experiencing market price that is going down, and at what equilibrium price are all profits eliminated? Well, at certain price that touches the average cost, at this price average cost and price is the same and there is no profit left. So when average total cost is equal to price, there is zero economic profit. Doesn't mean the firm is not making some profit, because if somebody pays himself or herself to run the business, that's part of the cost. That's okay. And that is the nature of the competitive firms. So now, if the price goes down to the average cost of, let's say, $4, so average cost, average total cost goes down to $4. At that level, at $4 there are 16,000 units. At $4 there are 16,000 units that are being produced. So therefore, and each one of them is a profit maximizer. So if I divide by 16,000 by 500 that each player is producing, you end up with a 32 producers at that level. This wraps up the both questions for discussion and the problems for chapter 6. I hope you find it useful to review.